The stick in the mud, the polar opposite of her. He'd still been fun to work with, and she hoped she'd get the chance to do so again. Riley wondered where he was and what he was doing. She hadn't seen him since everything went down at the Unnaturals headquarters, when he'd taken the Croatan Indian weapon she'd used to kill all of the vampires in the warehouse and left it somewhere safe. She hadn't heard a word from him since. She really hoped he wasn't one of the agents now trying to track her down to put a bullet in her brain pan. It was a negative thought, she knew, but it was a current fact of her life. With Brandon having abused his new position as deputy director to put out a hit on her, she'd have dozens of agents looking for her, trying to find her and capture or kill her. The thought made her grasp the steering wheel tightly in both hands, her knuckles blanching with the force of her grip. "Two can play at that game, asshole," she breathed. It was then she caught sight of Brandon's sedan pulling into the agency's parking lot. Riley's anger flared at the sight of his silver Lexus LS cruising through the agency's lot to the designated deputy director parking spot near the door. Her shoulders tensed, her muscles trembled, and she watched the familiar blonde figure emerge from the vehicle like the self-satisfied bastard it was. She ground her fingers into the leather-covered steering wheel and fought the urge to jump the curb and run him over, thereby ending her immediate problems right then and there. But too many pedestrians were around, and she didn't want to risk running over an innocent bystander in her haste to kill Brandon. Besides, she was almost 100% certain that Damon Hartley wouldn't appreciate it if she used his money to pay for rental car repairs. Not because of the need for the repairs themselves, but because she'd have killed Brandon with a distinct lack of finesse. And Damon was the type of man who appreciated finesse. A tap on the passenger window startled her, and she tore her eyes away from Brandon's disappearing figure and to the other side of the car. Damon stood outside the car, holding 2 coffee cups and a small white paper bag from the nearby coffee shop, waiting patiently for her to acknowledge him. She hit the unlock button on the driver's door, and the dark-haired man juggled the cups enough to get the passenger door open. He slid inside, knocking Linus onto the floorboard, and passed her one of the coffees he held before pulling the door shut, settling in his seat and setting the paper bag on his lap. She took a cautious sip of the coffee and was surprised to discover the drink was prepared the way she liked it. As she drank, she peered at her boss out of the corner of her eye, scanning him over with thinly veiled curiosity. Damon was tall enough that he looked like he should have been uncomfortable with his frame tucked into the passenger seat, but the discomfort didn't show on his face. Despite his height, he looked fit and strong, well-dressed in a day suit and with his dark hair neatly combed. Afforded her first real close-up, casual look at him that didn't involve him surprising her while she wore just a towel, Riley tried to guess his age, and she put it somewhere in the mid to late 40s, maybe even right at 50 on the outside, though the only indicators of age that he had were the creases at the sides of his mouth and around his almost black eyes. He waited until she'd taken several sips of her drink before he said, "I thought I told you to get out of town for a while." "You did," she agreed. She took another sip of coffee, rolling it around in her mouth and savoring the taste of it before swallowing. It was bitter, but it was a perfect kind of bitterness that she enjoyed. "Any particular reason why you haven't?" She shrugged and set the cup into one of the holders in the console between them. She eyed the white paper bag on his lap, wondering what was in it, and said, "I've never been one to turn tail and run at the first hint of danger." "No, you usually run towards it," he said. He took a swallow of his own coffee and adjusted the wire-framed sunglasses he wore, pushing them further up his nose with one long finger. "That's me, reckless to the bitter end." She glanced toward the agency building. Brandon was gone.